So we've seen how we can use input and output with string values. Now let's review how we can use other operators with strings. When we learned about arithmetic operators, we learned that the plus sign can be used with string operands, and that when we use it in that way, it will concatenate or join together the strings. So here's an example where I'm using the concatenation operator to join two existing string variables, a last name and first name, along with a comma character to form somebody's full name. Whenever you concatenate strings together, Python just joins them right next to each other in the list that it creates. And then it stores the resulting list in whatever variable identifier you have on the left side. So suppose that last name stores the string Smith and first name stores the name John. What would be stored in full name after we execute this command? Our full name variable will store all of the characters that are in the last name string. So that's Smith, 5 characters. Then it'll concatenate right next to that a comma, and then concatenate right next to that the characters from first name, which are John. So after the statement executes, we'll have Smith, comma, John with no spaces stored as the full name. You could certainly add spaces if you wanted to. If you wanted it to have a comma and then a space, you could add that into your string literal that you concatenate between the first name and last name, and that would cause it to include a space between the names in the full name result. We've also seen that you can use the multiplication operator to repeat a string value multiple times. So for example, if we use this command, silly greeting equals hello times 3, that's telling Python that we'd like to repeat this particular string, the literal hello, 3 times and store the result in this variable silly greeting. So after this statement executes, the variable silly greeting would store the value hello, 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 just like that with no spaces next to it. If you wanted to include spaces in your resulting string, you could certainly do that by including a space in your original string literal. We can also use the equality test operator to check the value of a string to determine if it's equal to another string value. So for example, suppose that we wanted to allow a user to enter a password to access a particular system. We might want to be able to check their password to see if it has a particular value. So we could do something like prompt the user to enter their password. Please enter your password. And then we're storing whatever they type in this variable called password. And then suppose we want to know whether the user entered the actual characters PASSWORD as their account password. We could do that by checking to see if the password that we stored in our variable password was equal to, using the 2 equal signs, the equality test, and then include the string literal password on the right-hand side. So we're checking to see if the contents of that variable is equal to the word password. And then if it is, we want to print out a message telling them that that's silly. That's the worst password on the planet. You should never use that as your password. It's one of the things that hackers check first whenever they're trying to access accounts. They'll use just password or a certain number of zeros because those are really common passwords. Let's demo this in Python just to see how the program works. Let's test it out. So if I enter password, it tells me that was a silly password. If I enter anything else, it doesn't give me the message. And that's the exact behavior we'd expect from this program.